Hello and what is up YouTube? My name is G3Iron and welcome to the long-awaited, much anticipated 3.15 League Starters Suggestion Day. Today is the day where everybody as a community is either scrambling to look around and choose their own League Starter or is scrambling around looking to see what other people are choosing as their League Starters. So welcome to the madness that is League Build Starter Selection Day. Today we've got 5 different builds that we're going to recommend for you in our League Starter generic video, and then tomorrow we're going to chat a little bit about minions and make some recommendations for those of you who are looking to make your undead army and all the dreams and nightmares of your enemies come true. If you are new to the channel, then you can of course like, subscribe, and ding the bell to be notified about future video discussions just like this one. And if at any point throughout the video you'd like to reference any of the builds that we are recommending to you, all of the build forum links as well as videos and POBs will be hyperlinked down below in the video description below my slightly balding forehead. Without any further ado, let's jump into our 5 recommended builds that are not focused on minions.
Every soul has a birth-given right to live however they will, however they can.
The first recommended guide that I'd like to suggest to you today is Velyna's Hollow Palm Ice Crash build. This particular build was the subject of several different nerfs in the patch notes for 3.15. You might be wondering at this point, okay, wait, Iron, why are you recommending a build that got nerfed hard? Because this is a build that got nerfed hard and it's still going to do exceptionally well with all of the various content. While elemental immunity is no longer a part of the part and parcel package of the Raider Ascendancy, it does have 50% chance to avoid ailments, which means if you still want to get ailment immunity, Raider is going to be a great way to eventually get there. You only need to find 50% on the tree, on gear, etc. in order to get back to 100% ailment immunity. A lot of other various ascendancies don't have that level of flexibility to try and take on ailment immunity. So in other words, if you still want ailment immunity, you still want damage, and you still want to go fast, Raider is still going to be a very strong option. Basically, every single build that I combed through on the forums and on various suggestion places where people post their builds, whether that's YouTube, Reddit, etc., almost everybody got hit in some way with the support gem nerf. So anybody thinking, oh, well, the support gems got nerfed for this particular build, so you shouldn't recommend it, well, then nobody's going to be playing anything. There are very few builds that didn't get hit in some way, which we're going to talk about some of those tomorrow when we talk about the minions. But this particular build, Velyna's Hollow Palm Ice Crash, is strong enough that it can actually look the nerfs in the face and say, so what? You can still go fast, you can still take on bosses, you can still zoom through maps at a relatively strong speed, and it doesn't require a whole bunch of uniques to get off the ground and to get going, which is always something that we're looking for whenever we're making league recommendations for your starters. We don't want to recommend to you a whole bunch of builds that require X number of uniques, because you never know if you're playing SSF or Trade League if those particular items simply won't drop for you, or if they're going to be incredibly expensive on League Start. So this build gets a 2 thumbs up recommendation for its speed, its overall ability to take on endgame content while still remaining tanky, its ability to still achieve ailment immunity with a couple of very clever setups, and then ultimately, even with the nerfs, it still has good damage output. If you like going fast, you want to play something that's melee, and you want to be elemental immune, then this is going to be a build for you.
Simple job, I was told. Silence a big mouth, get a big payout.
The next build to recommend is DissentXTV's Battle Trapper. A lot of different players are recommending Trappers this particular league just because of all the things that got hit with nerfs. Trappers seem to have been the thing that got hit the least, or seemingly so the least. This particular Trapper has a heavy emphasis on survivability, on taking on content, dealing a whole ton of damage, but also remaining alive in case you make mistakes. And we all make those mistakes, especially when we're league starting. We don't have the gear to simply gear check our way through the game. Saboteur is an incredibly defensively oriented ascendancy. Most players just think of Sabo as being offensively oriented, but it's got a couple of layers that are very forgiving, including blind, that are very, very helpful for players when they are playing on a league start and need to simply avoid damage altogether because they don't have layers and layers of of mitigation. No, not layers and layers of RNG. That's what GGG does. We've got layers and layers of mitigation, but that will come later on down the line as we acquire more currency, craft better gear, and purchase better gear if we're in a trade league. If we're just league starting and we want to make sure that we can stay alive, progress through the 10x story campaign, get to maps, and take down bosses pretty quickly, then this is going to be a wonderful build guide for you, including the option to even play this build in hardcore. That's how tanky this particular build can get. So if you're looking for something that doesn't die, and if dying on league start several times or shotgunning or death running bosses is something that frustrates you, then this would be a great build for you to play. You can oftentimes front load your damage by simply dropping a whole bunch of traps down, even while a boss is dialoguing or is chatting with you. Oftentimes that's what I'll do in Act 7 with the Crab King. You simply throw down a bunch of traps. By the time they're done, instantly phased, and away you go on to the next phase of the boss. DissentTV both streams as well as answers questions inside the forum thread, so I would encourage you, if you've got questions about this, there's over 180 pages worth of discussion on the forum thread for this particular build. It's a build that's been around for a while, which means lots of different players have tried it. It's survived multiple different meta changes, and without getting heavily hit by the nerf bat, it's looking to be strong once again for 315 Expedition.
The way I hear it, there'll be plenty of work for a man of my talents in Rayclast.
Next up is Typicaldemon's Toxic Rain Trickster. For those of you who have never played a Toxic Rain build, it's very easy to get off the ground, and oftentimes the gem links for Toxic Rain while you are leveling through the 10x story campaign and while you first are filling out your atlas, those are quality of life gems. They are not straight damage gems, which means that the straight damage nerfs to support gems that GGG applied at roughly 20 to 40% really doesn't hit that hard on this particular build. Toxic Rain has been the king of either racing or league starting for a long time now, and whenever it gets knocked off of its spot as the king, it still remains an excellent option as like a prince or a duke or something, some other equivalent nobility. Offering you ghost shrouds, plenty of recovery, as well as simply not getting hit and being ranged, which is always strong in any action RPG. You can make sure that you stay outside of the range of bosses and plenty of monsters, all while dealing as much damage as possible. Typicaldemon's done a great job with this particular build guide by providing an in-depth leveling guide and leveling section with a detailed walkthrough on each of the different gems that you want to be using on the quality of life setup for Toxic Rain. If you're looking for something that's slow or that needs to really stop and hit every single pack, this is not a build for you. If you're looking to simply fire away a drop of Toxic Rain here or there, and then let your Mirage Archer follow up as you run through a zone, then this is a great build that you're looking for. Caustic Arrow is also a great alternative option that you can play and run with this same setup on the same tree. You don't need to have any gear swaps. You don't need to have any weapon swaps. You don't need to change around passives. It's a wonderful guide to walk you through using either Toxic Rain or Caustic Arrow, depending on your particular choice of preferred gem. Toxic Rain kind of feels like it's taking up that spot in the meta where ED Contagion used to take up, where it's just like ye old faithful. If you need something to league start and then potentially transition to something else, it's a great option, which oftentimes transitioning to other builds is what you want to be thinking about when you're selecting a league starter. So by selecting a Shadow, you could then jump over to either playing Sabo or Assassin later on in the league without having to re-level a character. A lot of players don't like re-leveling characters, and so if you know already, hey, maybe late game I want to play a self-poison Assassin build, or I want to play a cast on crit build, or I want to try something that's really reliant on traps and mines, you can do that, and you can safely level up and experience your league start with all of the benefits of being a trickster. It's safe, it's reliable, it's fast, and it's got flexible options. That gives it 2 thumbs up.
Death is my brother. I do not fear him.
Our next build to recommend is Guggelhupf's Warchief Chieftain. Now, for those of you who have maybe played Facebreaker-based builds in the past, this is going to build that is either going to give you a nostalgia trip, or it's just going to be a build that maybe you've never played and you're going to go, wow, I didn't realize that Warchief can be that strong. By playing with Facebreaker, you get a huge amount of flat damage that goes directly onto your Chieftain for your Warchief to take down all the various content that you'd want to tackle on a league start. Facebreaker is oftentimes very, very cheap from the get-go in a league, unless it is a melee-oriented league with a lot of melee hype and a lot of players really promoting it, which I have not seen. Then Facebreaker is generally pretty cheap, and you can even get a well-rolled one for early prices that will pay off huge in dividends as you progress through your Atlas. Those of you who have been in our community for a while, you know I don't like to recommend league starters that are dependent on uniques, and so you can play this build without even using Facebreaker pretty much throughout the campaign and even early on into maps. So in other words, if you don't get lucky with currency drops, or you're not playing in a trade league, or you simply don't drop a Facebreaker in an SSF scenario, that's okay. You can still play this build. The Warchief is still something that you can progress with, and there's a couple of different utility gems that you can use in order to deal damage on top of the damage that your Ancestral Warchief is going to play. So best case scenario, you get a Facebreaker, you simply drop a totem, you keep running, you're clearing through the axe, and you're getting to maps on time as you want to. Or, worst case scenario, you're dropping totems, you're running around, you're occasionally providing a bit of extra damage with your own self, since you don't have that Facebreaker yet, and away you go. You'll still make it to maps just fine. You can grab some currency in maps, and then go get that Facebreaker from there. I really like builds that allow you to have essentially a fail-proof league start. In other words, let's say you don't get your Facebreaker or whatever unique it is for your league starter. Maybe it's not this particular build, but another. Does the build guide include a fallback option? Does the build guide sufficiently walk you through and detail you through how damage is acquired for this particular build? And does it give you a subset of goals for your defensive layers? This particular guide does both of those things, giving you plenty of options as plan B and lots of options for defensive layers. If you want to scale up your damage towards the end game, let's say you've had a successful opening weekend and you're swimming in currency and you really want to scale the damage up, then there's plenty of ways that you can transition an Ancestral Warchief build into a strength stacking Chieftain build that will give you even more damage. So not only is this build a great league starter, it then gives you a platform to then move forward with the rest of the league with a really strong endgame bossing character.
They were right to fear me. If only they had listened to their cowardice.
The last guide that we'd like to recommend for you today is ShakCentral's Vortex for Everyone. I've league started this a couple of times over the last year, and it is simply a wonderful, magnifico, beautiful build to league start. And we also got notification from Chris today that Hypothermia is getting its damage back. Yay! Shak, don't worry. Shak, you can go to bed like well rested and happy today, okay? Like, it's okay. Hypothermia is coming back. Vortex is going to be fine. ShakCentral does a great job with this particular build. It's got hundreds of pages of comments, and there is nobody I know in the community, not even Enki's Arc Witch Guide, does a better job of walking players through why each and every item that you're going to be looking for in crafting is included in the build, and how to actually craft and acquire each and every item that is going to be used in the build. ShakCentral does the best job out of every single build I've ever looked at and helping players go from day one to their final day of playing the build with lots of increases and power boosts along the way, showing you, holding your hand as it were, walking you through in a reliable, relatable, and easy to understand way. If you are a new player to Path of Exile, if you've never played but you've heard about 315, maybe you've been seeing your friends play it, or you've been invited to play Path of Exile, maybe you've only given it a shot here or there, and you're wondering, what should I be playing? What guide should I follow as I start this particular game in this particular league? ShakCentral's is the place to go. In terms of quality of life, there is no item or skill gem in the game that gives a better source of moving while you deal damage as a league starter option than Vortex. You can simply walk around, you can punch your phasing flask, walk literally through packs, dropping a Vortex as you go. You can bind Vortex to your walk button, which means you're not walking and then stopping to cast. You're simply walking and dropping death as you go. It is exceptional in terms of speed, moving and progressing through the 10X story campaign. It's exceptional in terms of bossing with all of the different ways that you can supplement and augment your damage as you continue to progress your Atlas from white maps to yellow maps to red maps, even to endgame encounters like Uber Elder and the Maven fight. There's all sorts of ways that you can tinker, that you can augment, and that you can play with this build. ShakCentral has done a great job of making this build guide a Swiss Army knife for players, whether you're new and you're looking to learn the basics of playing Path of Exile, or whether you're experienced and you want something that'll give you some reminders, maybe about some tips that you had forgotten about, because there's so much knowledge to the game in Path of Exile. This is going to be the place to go. Well, thanks so much for joining us for today's discussion. Tomorrow we're going to be covering minions, so those of you wondering, hey Iron, where's like the necromancer and stuff? You're the minion guy. Don't worry, minions are coming, my friends. Minions are coming. Thanks so much for watching. I'd love to hear down below in the comments, what is your league starter? Is it going to be one of these particular 5? I've play tested and messed around with each of these builds, either in previous leagues or in current days, and I love each and every one of these skills. They each offer something unique and something flavorful in and of themselves. So whether you want to go zoom, whether you want to smash stuff yourself, whether you want to see a totem smash stuff, or whether you just want to walk through stuff and have a relatively safe and easy time, or if you just want one of the best guides that's been written ever in Path of Exile, there's lots of options for you right here. Let me know down below in the comments what build you're going to be selecting for 315 Expedition League. And as always, I hope 315 is the league a Mirror of Calandra drops for you.
Thanks for watching that video. If you'd like more information on any of our discussion points today, you can see them down below in the video description. If you'd also like to join our Discord or support our Patreon, you can do so with the links down below. Thanks again, and big shout out to all of our Patreon supporters.